The Subcommittee 2 of Public Safety, formerly the Public Safety Subcommittee of Public Safety, will come to order. If the clerk can please open the roll. Let's please make sure Delegate Weber is marked present.
I'm pulling a sickle, sorry.
All right. We have a quorum. Thank you all so much for joining us. We've got several bills to go through. This morning, we are going to start with Chairman Willett. I know he's got a committee to get to. Chairman Willett, we have two bills from you. House Bill 454 will start, and then 455.
Right. Mr. Chairman, thank you so much. I appreciate the opportunity to be with you this morning, and I will go through these, starting with 454. So this is related to addiction recovery programs, and what this bill does very simply is to repeal the Department of Criminal Justice Services requirement to have the Model Addiction Recovery Grant Program for regional jails. What we're going to do instead is through a budget, accompanying budget amendment, which you're not reviewing today, is have that program, appropriate funds for that program to the jail mental health pilot program. And this will enable the sheriffs and the deputy sheriffs, jail officers to have addiction recovery programs through that avenue, which, based on a recommendation of the Joint Commission on Healthcare, is the better avenue. So really, legislation to remove the current direction, but then a budget amendment separately that will actually get this, I think, in a better place, and we'll have, I think, a better system for these programs, which have been very effective through the jails.
Thank you, Delegate Willett. Are there questions from the committee? Seeing
yes, Mr.
that,
Chair.
Delegate Weber.
Sorry. So does this essentially kind of decentralize it and put a lot of more of the responsibility on the regional jails, et cetera, and out of DCJS hands?
I think that's a good way to put it. It certainly puts the money with them more directly. I think it just makes it easier for the sheriffs to get to that. No offense to DCJS, but we've got some great programs through our sheriffs, and I think it's just a better way to do it.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Members of the public who wish to speak in favor of the bill, please come forward. Those who are opposed, turning online, we see no one online for this bill. The bill is back before the committee. Committee, what is your pleasure?
Mr. Chair, move to report. Second.
Motion has been made and properly seconded to report House Bill 454. Members may please cast their vote. Clerk shall close the roll. Bill reports 7-0. Delegate Willett, House Bill 455.
Thank you. So we'll shift to 455 now, and this is another pretty straightforward bill that comes as a recommendation of the Joint Commission on Healthcare. Just essentially what it does, it creates a 3-year time limit for the Virginia Opioid Use Reduction in Jail-Based Substance Use Disorder Treatment and Transition grant. Allows transition time for self-sufficient programs, but now the applicant will have to demonstrate how they can be financially independent and viable. It's essentially just putting some time guardrails around these programs, and hopefully that's going to make things more efficient. These are great initiatives, but they just thought the recommendation was to tighten that up, and hopefully that will make it more effective.
All right, thank you, Delegate Willett. Are there questions from the committee? Seeing none, we turn to the public. Anyone here in favor of House Bill 455? Those who are opposed? Turning online, we see no one is online for House Bill 455. The bill is back before the committee. Committee, what is your pleasure?
Move to report, Mr. Chair. Second.
Motion is made and properly seconded to report House
Mr.
Bill.
Chair.
Mr. Uber Chair.
If I'm looking at this correctly, I think the motion would be to report and refer on this one. Am I right?
We haven't gotten.
No, I'm sorry. I was looking at the wrong bill. My bad.
That's all right.
Just wanted to make sure everyone knew I was here.
We're going to.
There we go.
The motion is to report and refer to the full committee. So you're correct, Mr. Chair, of course, as always.
Yeah.
Motion's been made and properly seconded to report House Bill 455. Members may please cast their vote. Clerk shall close the roll. Bill reports 7-0. Thank you, Delegate Willett.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, members of the committee.
Thank you. Next, we will have Delegate, Delegate Cole, if you're in.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the committee.
Good morning.
Thank you so much. Before you today is HB 35, Restorative Housing and Isolated Confinement Restrictions in Use. This particular bill you have seen before, actually twice, in 2024 and in 2025, and we believe that the change is long overdue. The bill basically just simply restricts solitary confinement to a maximum of 15 days, unless an individual themselves asks to be placed into solitary confinement. You have listened to the testimonies of the people who've come before you to talk about the mental health. You've heard them talk about what has happened after they've been released back into society and the effects that solitary confinement has placed on them. There will be testimonies today, and there are people who are here today. And so since we have passed this bill in 2024 and in 2025, and now we believe it's time to pass it again and finally have it signed into law, I just ask to be the pleasure of the committee to finally pass this bill and get it signed into law. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Delegate Cole. Are there questions from the committee? Seeing none, we will turn to the public. Those wishing in person to speak in favor of the bill, please come forward. Please limit your testimony to 1 minute, and if you need a tiny bit more, let me know. But we have heard this before, and we are excited to have you again, but we'll be as expeditious as we can, if you don't mind.
Thank you very much, Chairman Razul. Thank you, Delegate Scott, for carrying this bill. My name is David Smith. I am the Director of SALT, Social Action Linking Together, and a solitary survivor, having spent 16 and a half months in solitary confinement in Virginia. I want to give a very brief history lesson here for those of you that do not know this. This has been an issue since the 1970s in Virginia. There was a lawsuit back then that was settled in the early 80s, which was supposed to end this practice. It did not. In the late 80s and 90s, we expanded our prison system, created the Red Onions and Wallen Ridges, these supermaxes that are out there. We have been doing this fight, I want to say, since 2016. I joined it in 2017, 2018. We have passed bills, we have done half measures, and I thank you for each one of you taking those steps to get us to where we are today to have this final bill passed. And what is most important for this is that this will change the way Virginia is seen. I go around the country talking to people about incarceration, and Red Onion is today's Angola prison. This is the prison in the country that everyone looks at as the worst case scenario. This bill would change that. Thank you so much for your support.
Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Bruce Levy. I've never done this before, but I think I'm the face also of this bill. Back in 2014, I was charged with a crime I didn't commit, but took 4.5 years before I won my appeal and my freedom. The first 17 months of my incarceration at Pamunkey Regional Jail, I was held in administrative custody, which is solitary, 17 months solid. The only time I got out of it was 4 times I was placed on suicide watch, which is total seclusion for 72 hours. The reason I was placed in administrative custody for 17 months is because I use a CPAP machine for sleep apnea, which is a disability which is addressed by this bill. We are now 7 years out from my freedom, and I still have all kinds of side effects from that 17 months. I used to be a very social person. My default mode now is to sit home alone, especially in my bedroom, which I have a beautiful house, but my bedroom is twice the size of the cell I was kept in for 17 months. People know not to call me on the phone. They text me. I do not do well in crowds such as this. I pray that my experience will help to encourage you to pass this measure. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your testimony.
Good morning, Chair, Committee. I'm Fatima Mawai, Head Co-Representative for the Virginia Chapter of Survivors for Justice Reform. We're a global coalition of advocates for trauma-informed, community-created responses rooted in restorative and transformative justice models. Survivors are not a monolith. The members of this committee now know a survivor-led coalition that stands in firm opposition to the practice of extended solitary confinement. We often talk about isolation as a policy, but science tells us a darker story. Research shows that after just 14 days in solitary, the human brain begins to atrophy, which, as you know, means it begins to die. When we allow extended isolation, we aren't just managing people, we are biologically breaking them. Incarcerated people deserve a justice system that heals rather than one that intentionally destroys the human mind. Let's choose restoration over permanent damage. I urge you to vote yes. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your testimony.
Good morning. My name is Yolanda Roussel. I'm the president of the Stafford NAACP. And on behalf of our branch, we call on the Commonwealth of Virginia to dismantle severe, inhumane, and unaccountable punishment of incarcerated individuals carried out with impunity. Prolonged solitary confinement causes documented psychological harm, disproportionately impacts Black and mentally ill individuals, and undermines rehabilitation. We urge this General Assembly to establish firm limits, require mental health reviews, and ensure transparency and independent oversight. Humane treatment and public safety are not in conflict. They are inseparable. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony.
Good morning, committee.
Good morning.
Thank you all for this opportunity. My name is Harry Trainer. I'm speaking on behalf of the Humanization Project and myself. I am a Justice Impact person. I just came home after 30 years. And to give you a quick background of the negative effects of solitary confinement, I lost my grandmother, and I had a moment. Instead of assisting me with that moment, they threw me in solitary. And it's things like that that made me to the point now that I'm scared or afraid to express myself. Because every time you express yourself in prison, there's a punishment. There's not treatment, there's no help. There is the solution is form and segregation. So that's the reality of it and the misuse of it in many ways. And I thank you for your time.
Thank you for your testimony.
Chair and members of the committee, I'm Kenneth Hunter with the Virginia Interfaith Center for Public Policy. I'm also a survivor of 4 years of solitary confinement, and we strongly support this bill. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, Jeff Caruso with the Virginia Catholic Conference. Placing a clear limit on isolated confinement is an important matter of dignity and justice, and we urge you to support this bill. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and committee members. I'm Kimberly Jenkins Snodgrass, interim chair of Interfaith Action for Human Rights and a lifetime member of a NAACP Stafford. I'm here today because it's been 10 years. It's been a decade. And I sat back there and I said, what else can I say to you to have you vote yay for this bill? If you vote yay today, this morning, you will address lockdown, restrictive housing, isolated confinement, and solitary confinement with one vote. I ask that you support this bill. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen of the distinguished committee. My name is Paul Taylor. I go by the name of Taylor Paul, and I'd like to make something clear immediately that I'm not pro-Democratic or pro-Republican, I'm pro-right. But if my mama was here, and I don't see her, she would have jumped up and disrupted this committee by saying that boy was a Democrat because I raised him one. I really want to say real quick, I'm not coming in here as an advocate of the League for Safer Streets. I'm coming here today as a father that was in prison with his own child. Imagine how I felt to have a son on the top bunk and you on the bottom sleeping, knowing that you failed the kid on the top. Imagine being released from prison, going back to familiar center your mama house, but your sons ain't there. You see, I had 3 sons inside of prison. One of them started going through some mental health challenges, and I constantly, me and his mother called the Department of Corrections trying to get him the help that he needed. Bear in mind, I facilitated all of the state-mandated programs in the Department of Corrections for over 3 years. Over 5 years. Calling back and forth up to this same institution, that I sat in the foxhole with people in the Department of Corrections, helping them with sending people back home, making Virginia #1 in preventing recidivism. I called them asking for help for my boy. Their help was solitary confinement, constantly, to the point that one day they came back there, and my boy hung himself. Their answer for what my boy was going through was solitary confinement. I'm not pointing the fingers at anyone, because the very first person that failed my child was me. But today, it was solitary confinement. Thank you for letting me share that.
Thank you. Thank you for your testimony and your story. Those opposed to the bill, please come forward. After this, we will turn online.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. My name is Don Baylor. I'm with the National Coalition of Public Safety Officers, representing employees in the Department of Corrections and Juvenile Justice. I wanted to say from the onset that I spent 27 years myself working in Virginia's prisons. I worked at 5 major prisons. I worked in population settings and I worked in segregation settings. And much of this bill, we don't have a problem with. There's language in here that we fully and wholeheartedly agree with. But I just want to issue a note of caution while we are looking at this, because sometimes, and I know firsthand, that a lot of people who are placed in restorative housing don't need to continue to be in restorative housing. The review process in this bill is, I think, is pretty good in this bill with the review process. But there are situations where there are going to be certain individuals that you just can't afford to put back into a population setting without taking a second look, and sometimes a third look. And lives may depend on this. And we know that these kind of things can lead to catastrophes for not just the incarcerated offender, but the staff person as well. So I just ask for a note of caution.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate your testimony. We'll turn online for those who are, it looks like we have individuals who are in favor. First, we'll turn to Ms. Valerie Slater with Rise for Youth. Thank you, Valerie, for joining us.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the committee, and we thank the Virginia Commission on Youth for bringing this bill forward. And it is important that we indeed look at putting children in solitary confinement and how long we leave them in that setting, and that we put limitations on it. I'm very impressed with the amount of work that went into ensuring that this bill was not just a blanket will not use room confinement, but rather it is ensuring that no child, no young person is left in their room indefinitely, that there are constant checks to ensure the safety and well-being of youth, and that we are being responsible and caring for young people who are in the custody of the Department of Juvenile Justice, because that is the purpose of the department. It is to rehabilitate, to care for young folks who have found themselves in need of further support. So thank the Commission for bringing the bill forward, and Virginia State Conference, NAACP, and Rise for Youth strongly support this bill and ask that the body would indeed pass it.
Thank you, Ms. Slater, and we'll have that testimony also applied to House Bill 91, which is similarly situated specific to youth as well. Speaking to House Bill 35 as well at this point, Ms. Allison Chafin.
Hi, good morning, Chair and members of the committee. First, I want to thank you, Delegate Cole, Razul, Siebold, the people I see patron this bill. I'm Allison Chafin. I'm here today as a citizen, but also directly impacted. My partner has been in prolonged solitary confinement for 10 months now. and I'm asking you to end a practice that is state-sanctioned trauma. From the outside, this has changed my life forever. I live in constant vigilance. I wake up wondering if he's eating, if he's cold, if he's deteriorating mentally. Weeks pass without hearing his voice, and when I do hear from him, I'm expected to stabilize someone being systematically isolated while holding myself together too. The cruelest part is his 12-year-old son, a child who used to hear from his father regularly, now only gets long gaps of silence. And no child should have to live with that. 95% of people in prison will come home, and my partner comes home in 3 years. So I need to ask you plainly, is this how we want people to return to our communities as our neighbors and parents after years of isolation? I'm out of time, so I'm asking you to please vote yes on this for not just the people in there enduring this based on testimony you heard, but for families like mine and for the communities they will return to. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we'll turn to Justina.
Good morning, Chair and members of the committee. My name is Justina Rosinski. I'm a licensed clinical social worker licensed in both New York and Virginia, and I worked on Rikers Island as a clinical supervisor of that mental health units from December 2023 to September 2024. I left my job there because I could not watch people being tortured while locked in their cells. And I'm here today because I have seen what solitary confinement really is from the inside. It is not safety, it is not treatment, it is not accountability. It is a slow destruction of the mind, the body, and the spirit. At Rikers, I watched people, many living with mental illness, be locked alone for weeks, even months. I watched them break. I watched them stop eating, stop speaking, stop trusting. I watched human beings spiral into panic, paranoia, self-harm, and suicide attempts. And not because they were beyond help, but because isolation took away their humanity. And this isn't just my opinion. The United Nations had stated that solitary confinement is torture. I came from New York to tell you, we already know what happens when solitary is allowed, and we cannot let that happen here. People do not heal in cages. I saw what happens in jails and prisons, and Virginia can do better. Virginia can be the example of what real public safety, dignity, and accountability should look like. Please end solitary confinement in Virginia, because no human being should be punished by being locked in a cage. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. We will turn back to the committee. Delegate Siebold.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First, I want to thank the patron for bringing this bill forward again.
Speaking to the bill.
Sorry, Mr. Chair. Speaking to the bill, Mr. Chair.
Delegate Siebold.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First, I want to thank the patron, Mr. Chair, for bringing this bill forward. I know he's been working on this for a couple of years now, and so I appreciate your dedication to this issue. Second, I want to thank the survivors of solitary confinement who have spoken today. I know that couldn't have been easy testimony, and for some of you, it was the first time standing up here and speaking. So thank you for your courage to tell your stories, and to the families as well whose loved ones are still incarcerated. Thank you as well for telling their stories. I actually do struggle with this bill. I am a co-patron of this bill, Mr. Chair, like you as well. I struggle with it because it still requires 15 days locked up. I do believe, Mr. Chair, that we should not have any type of solitary practice in Virginia. As we've heard from many of the survivors and families, there's no good comes from locking people up in cages. Most of those people will return as citizens into our society, and the consequences of being locked up are astronomical, particularly those who are youth, those who are elderly, those with disabilities, mental health issues. We should really consider, and again, I will support this bill, but I think it's something that we need to consider seriously in the future, banning this practice for certain vulnerable populations. But again, I thank everyone for telling your stories today. I will support the bill, but I do think that this is something that we should target in the future as banning in our community. So thank you for the opportunity to speak, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, thank you, Delegate Siebold. Delegate Weber.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. If I may, a few questions.
Delegate Weber.
Because I have to re-educate myself on this since I think the last time I dealt with this subject matter was when I guess Speaker Scott and Delegate Davis had their bill. studying this. So a couple of questions for the patron. So it's a 15-day max over 60 days. And then what is the documentation that would be needed if you had somebody that had issues where they were a threat to staff or somebody that required another one?
Sure. Mr. Chair, I will respond to the gentleman that the bill declares that the director of VDOC, would develop policies and procedures to implement that.
Okay. One more question, Mr. Chair.
Delegate Weber.
And then also in the bill, it has, 4 hours of daily programming and things of that nature, and then I think 1 hour of recreation. What would be, what is the additional cost to DOC to be able to provide that to the inmates in general? Because we're underfunded. We need to fund DOC for safety of everybody in the system.
Mr. Chair, I will respond to the gentleman. I don't believe that there is a fiscal on it at the current moment. Okay. But we have heard that there would be additional costs, and we'll see as it goes through the committee process what happens with maybe upstairs or whatnot.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Delegate Seabold.
At the appropriate time, Mr. Chair.
It is the appropriate time.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I do move to report and refer this to appropriations.
Second.
Motion's been made and properly seconded to report and refer to appropriations House Bill 35. Members may please cast their vote. Clerk shall close the roll. Bill reports and refers 5-2. Thank you, Delegate Cole.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee.
Thank you. Delegate Price.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and members. I have House Bill 80. And if you'll remember, in 2024, we passed the Virginia Deaths in Custody Reporting Act, and it passed out of the House 94-4 and the Senate 40-0. And it came about because at the federal level, though it was reauthorized in 2013, it had not been fully funded or enforced. So as with a lot of things, what we're doing is making a state version of what the federal government won't do. So based off the information that was received thus far, the Virginia Deaths and Reporting Custody Act Reporting State Implementation Plan raised some issues. And the number one issue that I saw was that not all entities that should be reporting were reporting. And in the report, it outlines a very streamlined process where it would reduce duplicate reporting information, analyze the data, and then send us recommendations. But basically, they said they didn't have enough information for us to get recommendations because not enough of the folks responded. So with that, one of the challenges that the reporting entities, the Virginia Association of Chiefs of Police, Sheriff's Association, State Police, Association of Regional Jails, Department of Corrections, Department of Juvenile Justice, and the Office of the Chief Medical Examiner, was that, again, duplication of existing report requirements and lack of clear definition of what constitutes a reportable death. But Mr. Chair and members, I would point you to line 20 to 22, where it is already code, because that was part of the act, the death of any person who is detained, under arrest, or in the process of being arrested, en route to be incarcerated, or otherwise in the custody of such law enforcement agency or correctional facility. So there should be no confusion. We wrote that, thank you, DLS, that it was very clear. So I am coming before you with significant frustration that one of the most important things that our facilities should, and law enforcement officers should be doing is making sure that whoever they are supposedly rehabilitating stays alive. And if they are no longer alive, why and you'll see number 1 through 4 is what is required to be reported. I did hear back from the Sheriff's Association, great point, that we did not set out a timeline. So with that, Mr. Chair, I think that there is an amendment.
There's
If
an amendment.
that's okay.
Yes. It's a line amendment. Clerk shall report a line amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The line amendment is on line 29. So after the word funds, we'd strike the remainder of line 29, all of line 30, and through B on line 31. There we would insert, if any local or regional correctional facility fails to send such report within 10 days, the State Board of Local and Regional Jails shall notify the Office of the Governor of such failure. If the facility fails to fully comply with subsection B within 10 days, comma, and then we pick up from there.
We have a motion on the amendment.
Move the amendment.
Second.
Motion made and properly seconded on the amendment. Without objection, the amendment is adopted. Questions before the committee?
Mr. Chair.
Delegate Weber.
So as I understand the line amendment, it gives them, if they're in the event of the death, they have 10 days to report it.
Yes, Mr. Chair, I would respond yes for this, but there are other reports that they have to fill out in a matter of hours. So 10 days is very generous.
All right. We will turn to members of the public who wish to be heard on the bill. Those in favor? Those who are, yes, come on up.
Chair, Committee, Fatima Mawahid, Survivors for Justice Reform, thank you. Delegate Price for pushing this bill. My husband is incarcerated in Virginia Department of Corrections, and this is like my biggest fear, that I won't know if something happens to him. Though this is not the perfect thing, but it is a start. But we also need to realize that there are religious aspects in the death of people, especially Muslims, and I just want to make sure that the committee is aware of that. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
David Smith, Social Action Linking Together. We believe in transparency. We think that the more light that is shown into our carceral system, the better it will be for everyone involved. So we support this bill.
Thank you. Those in person who are opposed to the bill. Turning online, Valerie Slater in favor of the bill. Welcome, Valerie.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Valerie Slater with Rise for Youth and representing also the Virginia State Conference in AACP. And for all of the reasons you have heard, we support this bill.
Thank you. The bill is back before the committee. Are there questions?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Delegate Webert.
Thank you. Sorry. I'm just trying to wrap my head around everything. So you said that there were some. So the bill is for also basically if an officer is making an arrest and something goes wrong and then a person dies, this also applies to this, correct?
Yes, and that was spurred on by the death of Freddie Gray that we watched on video, that during the arresting process, outside of a car, outside of anything, but at the site of the incident, being harmed, and he ultimately died. So this goes from the moment of interaction, of detainment between law enforcement and a resident, all the way through incarceration and any point in between.
One more question, Mr. Chair.
Delegate Webert.
Okay, so this is meant to streamline, I guess, to streamline the reporting. How does it do that?
So I thank you for the question, and Mr. Chair, I would answer. That was what we already passed. So I do want to draw your attention to what the amendment was, and it is, in my eyes, incentive for those that are supposed to report because their funding could be at risk.
Sorry, one last question.
Right.
So this is the stick instead of a carrot?
Yes, much like the role that they play in the incarcerated's lives.
Thank you, Delegate Siebold.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Question for the patron?
Delegate Siebold.
Thank you. In addition to Mr. Gray, can you talk to us a little bit about the number of incidents that have happened here in Virginia over the past few years?
Yes, so I might have left that right on my office, but if you look up the the DOJ, Death in Custody Reporting Act, and I think you actually might have the number because you are definitely well aware of what's going on. Virginia did not report in 2020 or 2023, but finally started reporting in 2024 and 2025. I don't want to misquote, but it is on the federal system, the federal website.
Thank you. Further questions? The bill is before the committee. What is your motion been made and properly seconded to report House Bill 80 as amended? I heard it somewhere. As amended. Members may please cast their vote. Clerk shall close the roll. Bill reports as amended 5-2. Thank you, Delegate.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Delegate Sullivan. House Bill 325.
Morning, Mr. Chair.
Morning.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, I was honored to be entrusted with HB 325 when our firefighters asked me to carry this bill. It's a simple but very important bill, Mr. Chair. We know that firefighters develop post-traumatic stress disorder at levels similar to military members returning home from combat. Approximately 20% of firefighters meet the criteria for PTSD at some point in their career. Back in 2020, Mr. Chair, the Virginia General Assembly passed legislation that encouraged fire departments, local fire departments, to develop mental health awareness training for their members. And there's a code section now that local departments are encouraged to include things like understanding the signs and symptoms of stress, fighting stigmas around seeking help, responding appropriately to aggressive behaviors, and how to access mental health treatment resources. The compliance, or maybe the ability to comply, has been sort of spotty. So what this legislation would do, Mr. Chair, is direct VDFP to develop an online module that's available to all firefighters, emergency medical service providers, and communication officers across the Commonwealth. It would provide this information in a central and established manner, and we hope, therefore, that greater compliance and participation will result. So that's the bill. It's a simple but very important bill, Mr. Chair. I look forward to your questions.
Thank you. Questions from the committee?
Yes, sir.
Now we'll go Delegate Weber.
How much is it going to cost?
There is a budget amendment. The answer is I'm not sure, but we have a budget amendment. It may require the creation of that online module. That'll cost
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
some very affordable amount of money.
Those in person in favor of the bill, please come forward.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. Jennifer Pike with the Virginia Professional Firefighters. We appreciate the patron carrying this bill for us. It will provide a cohesive place for us to house a training module for our members, which will be firefighters, emergency medical workers, dispatchers, whomever would choose to participate in the program. We appreciate him so much bringing this forward, and we also have fire programs here who we've worked in conjunction with, so if there are questions, I'm sure they'll be happy to answer. Thank you.
Thank you. Those who are opposed to the bill, please come forward. I don't see anyone online. Is the Deputy Chief of Roanoke City approve of the bill? Just a thumbs up?
Yes. Representing Virginia Fire Chiefs Association and the City of Roanoke, we are absolutely in support of this bill.
Thank you so much. That's what's most important. The bill is back before the committee.
To report and refer to appropriations.
Second.
The motion's been made and properly seconded to report and refer to appropriations. The bill is up for discussion. Delegate Anderson, any questions?
Mr. Chair, speaking to the bill.
Delegate Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to say, as a former spouse of firefighter EMS, I'm greatly appreciative of this bill. The stories that I was told at home that my former spouse had to retell and go through is evidence of something like this needing to be in place. So I just want to thank the patron. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate Anderson. Motion's been made and properly seconded to report and refer to appropriations. House Bill 325. Members may please cast their vote. Clerk shall close the roll. Bill reports 7-0. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, member of the committee.
Thank you, Delegate Sullivan. Chair Watts. You have House Bill 248 and 249 before us. Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning. Starting then with House Bill 248. Both of my bills are simple bills, but they involve very critical program of the Marcus Alert, which of course is the acronym for the giving people who are in behavioral health crisis the right support when law enforcement might be brought in. The first one deals with crisis co-response ability as we spread out the Marcus Alert at-risk teams. We find there are a number of localities where it might not be efficient or even possible to have the co-response teams established, and this gives the authority for law enforcement to be part of these teams multi-jurisdictionally.
Thank you. Are there questions from the committee on House Bill 248? Going in person, are there individuals wishing to speak on House Bill 248 in favor? Those who may be opposed? Turning online, I see none. The bill is back before the committee. Are there questions from the committee?
Sir, one question.
Delegate Weber.
So what would a coordinated behavior, what would this look like? Like, what would be a good example?
Okay, again, I think I'll start my answer by saying it doesn't require, but it allows local law enforcement to decide to cooperate across jurisdictional lines. So you could involve a 911 call, a call coming into law enforcement, and the response could be someone from a neighboring jurisdiction who has worked with the mental health professional who would be involved with part of the team so that they respond rather than where the call came into that jurisdiction. And the law enforcement from the neighboring jurisdiction would have authority to be in that response in the other jurisdiction.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Delegate Seabold.
Move to report, Mr. Chair. Second.
Motion been made and properly seconded to report House Bill 248. Members may please cast their vote. Clerk shall close the roll. House Bill 248 reports 7-0. Thank you, Chair Watts. 249.
Thank you. And the House Bill 249, along the same lines, comes from the Behavioral Health Commission. As we have worked with proper response for people who are in behavioral crises, there is concern that when it comes to someone who has been responded to, has needs, who was under age 18, that as they then become an adult, whether or not there is in these crisis Marcus Alert response teams, whether they are in fact breaking the law when they have information that pertains to when the individual was under age 18. They do not have control, however, of outside databases. So what this bill then does on lines starting on lines 105 is to say that an individual shall not be removed, and then it adds to that a third condition, or that the individual's information is maintained on an external database that cannot be modified by the locality. So while you have the requirement to remove information on someone prior to their being age 18, if it's on an outside database, you can continue to use that database because you don't have control of the removal of that information of the individual who is now over age 18.
Thank you, Delegate Watts. Are there questions from the committee? Delegate Cousins.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just have one question for the patron. Do you have any, are there any, or can you provide any examples of an external database?
I'm sorry.
Can you provide an example of an external database that the locality would not be able to modify?
May I ask if it's okay with you, Delegate Watts, go ahead.
As I have been provided the information that many of the call centers rely on third-party platforms to develop a voluntary database of people with behavioral health needs in accordance with statute. For these kinds of systems, the individual creates a profile and controls their own profile information. The call center has no authority to delete that individual's profile from these external platforms. Only the person who made the profile can delete the information. And so therefore you get that concern. But I do not have specific names of databases that are being used, but it is very common to be using a database that is not developed by the individual call center.
Thank you. And I don't know if council can opine and just give us kind of a tactical how this would play out to Delegate Cousins' question by chance.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. If you're asking me to give an example of a specific external database.
No, just how would this then transition to an external database, I guess.
Gotcha.
Let's maybe turn to some testimony and see if you've got anything to add on the back end, just to get some further clarification for Delegate Cousins. I think important point, trying to figure out the logistics of that.
Sure, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Turn to those who would like to speak in favor of the bill, please come forward.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and members of the subcommittee. I do have a name, one of the third-party databases that the City of Richmond uses. I'm Ruth Morrison with the city. Our emergency communications preparedness team informs we use a system, a third-party system called Rapid SOS. And I think the patron described well, it is just about localities, jurisdictions have no reach into the sort of administration operations of those third-party systems, and the patron's bill helpfully clarifies how the purge could work. So we support the bill. Thank you.
Thank you. And can you, just to further clarify so I can get this straight in my mind, so can you walk us through how that would work?
I'd have to consult with our emergency communications professionals to inform, but happy to do that with the patron.
Thank you.
As well as with the delegate. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Those who are opposed to the bill, please come forward. Turning online. Those who are wishing to speak, Valerie Slater.
Valerie Slater, NAACP, Virginia State Conference, and Rise for Youth, and we are in support of the bill to protect the information of minors in particular.
All right, the bill is back for the committee. Are there questions from the committee? Committee, what is your pleasure?
Move to report.
Second.
Motion's been made and properly seconded to report House Bill 249. Members may please cast their vote. Clerk shall close the roll. Bill reports 6-1.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, members.
Next up will be Delegate Davis, House Bill 726.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good morning. Speaking to House Bill 726. House Bill 726, I would say, is a bill that makes things right. Many of you probably don't know the criminal law procedure, but if someone is charged in Virginia and they happen to be out of state when they're arrested and taken into custody, current law, and sometimes they stay there for weeks or months, and if current law, they do not get credit for that if they're ultimately convicted and sentenced. So this bill simply gives them credit for any time served for the crime that they're convicted of, whether it's in state or out of state. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions from the committee? Delegate Chair Simon.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, give you a promotion. Mr. Chairman. No, I just want to actually thank the patron for bringing this bill forward. It's an important issue. I looked at it. I think it's like I said, it's just a matter of justice, right? Somebody's been serving time, whether that was inside our boundaries or outside, that ought to count towards their ultimate sentence. And appreciate bringing the bill forward. I think it's a great bill.
Thank you. Delegate Weber, questions?
Yeah, just one question. Just so I can be able to explain this to folks when I go home. So if I commit a crime in Virginia and I'm, say, arrested in North Carolina, but I can't get that, I'm stuck in North Carolina for a month. When I come to Virginia and then I'm convicted, the month that I spent in North Carolina would then also count.
Mr. Chair, I would answer that yes. If you're being incarcerated in a North Carolina facility, then you get credit. But it has a portion in it that if you're being held in North Carolina on another charge, then you do not get credit for the stuff for the time in Virginia, for the conviction in Virginia.
So no double dip. Sorry,
no double dipping.
Do you have another question?
One question. So no double dipping.
Correct.
All right, thank you.
All right. Those in the audience in favor of the bill, please come forward. Those in person against the bill. Turning online, we have two people. We'll turn to Mr. Weston to speak to the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm speaking on behalf of the Virginia Criminal Justice Conference. That's where this bill originated, and we contacted Delegate Davis, and he was kind enough to advance it for us. That conference is made up of judges from all levels of court, Supreme Court, Court of Appeals, and every level, and an equal number of prosecutors and defense attorneys. And the idea is to take issues in criminal law and propose bills like this that the committee, the conference deems need to be fixed. The issue here was just as Delegate Davis said, if you're held out of state, the way our current law says, you must be held in a Virginia jail or prison to get credit for any time served. So we offer this to fix that problem. And if you're held on something else in the other state, you will not get credit. We're not going to the other state to figure out what time went to what charge. If you're held just on extradition, you'll get the credit for the time served that you served in jail because of this charge.
Thank you, sir. Valerie Slater.
Speaking on behalf of the Virginia State Conference, NAACP supports the bill.
Thank you, Ms. Slater. Back before the committee. Are there questions from the committee?
Move to report. Second.
Motion has been made and properly seconded to report House Bill 726. Members, please cast your vote. Clerk shall close the roll. Bill reports 7-0.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Delegate Davis. Delegate Moorfield, good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. You have House Bill 63. This would move the capital of Virginia from Richmond to Tazewell. Just kidding.
Say Roanoke? Did he say Roanoke?
So you have before you House Bill 63. ATV tourism has been phenomenally successful in Southwest Virginia. There are thousands of people traveling from all over the country to come and ride the trails. And as a result, and in the beginning stages, when all of this started, the Spearhead Trails Authority was formed. And over the years, they have been extremely successful in establishing an infrastructure, a framework for those localities to take advantage, and the tourists to take advantage of our beautiful natural resources that we have in Southwest. And so what the bill would do is it would allow for the Southwest Recreational Authority to have the option of allowing the current trail ranger position to be a fully credited law enforcement officer. So you could imagine the trails are hundreds of miles. In fact, if I'm not mistaken, I think we're getting close to thousands of miles here. And these individuals sometimes are in areas with no radio service or no cell phone coverage. And so what this would do is provide additional safety for the trail riders by accrediting these officers as fully accredited officers. We do have the executive director, Steve Pike of Spearhead Trails Authority. Many of you remember him as the colonel of the Capitol Police. He has done a phenomenal job running that organization, and we do have him here today if you have any specific questions.
Thank you, Delegate Moorfield. Are there questions from the committee? Turning Delegate Simon, Chair Simon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just real, I say just real quick. I told him I do that a lot. It's a little verbal tech. So this may or may not be quick, but I'm gonna have a question. And I want to be clear about a couple things. I've been somebody who's sort of been reluctant to expand this kind of jurisdiction to private police departments and things like that. I just want to be really clear about what this bill does. This bill would allow these rangers to go through a criminal justice academy, take over a dozen weeks of training, get all the same training that a fully sworn officer would have so that they can act in a sworn capacity. This isn't using an SCOP program or one of these sort of, some of these other sort of police light programs that we've used to sort of bypass the full training requirements. This would just allow them to receive all the same training that any other sworn officer in the Commonwealth would get. Am I correct in reading it that way?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. This would not include any rent-a-cop scenarios. These would be full-time employees of the authority.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. We will turn in person for those wishing to speak in favor of the bill.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Steve Pike, I'm with Southwest Regional Recreation Authority, and I appreciate Delegate Moorfield bringing this bill before you all. And as Delegate Simon mentioned, when this authority was created in 2008, there was two options that was afforded. The trail rangers had civil authority to patrol, whether in uniform, or the conservator of peace. And as you're aware of my background, I'm not in favor of the conservator of peace program. And with the public safety requirements of these trail rangers and working these very remote locations without cell service, without radio service, they encounter things out there that they need this full law enforcement certification to do these jobs properly. So I would strongly encourage you all to support this bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there others wishing to speak to the bill? The bill is back before the committee. Are there further questions or comments from the committee?
Move to report, Mr. Chair.
Second. Motion's been made and properly seconded to report House Bill 63. Any discussion? Members can please cast their vote. Clerk shall close the roll. Bill reports 7-0.
All right, thank you all. Have a good day.
And Delegate Siebold.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, Mr. Chair, last year there were a series of media reports of riots, fires, injuries at Bon Air Juvenile Correctional Facility. You may have seen that in the news. Just to clarify, Bon Air is the only correctional center for youth in all of Virginia. So the Commission on Youth, which I am a member of, formed a work group as a result of these reports. And they started to research best practices. And the work group found that extended room confinement at Bon Air was likely a major factor contributing to these behavioral issues. And these findings align with research into the impacts of isolation on youth. Extended isolation in a room has often been shown to slow brain development and cause higher rates of anxiety or depression on our youth. And that was a recommendation by the American Psychological Association. And they did recommend banning solitary confinement for juveniles in 2024. So this bill, House Bill 91, seeks to shed light on the impacts extended room confinement has on our youth and set standards to prevent excessive isolation. In addition to requiring the Department of Juvenile Justice to study room confinement, this bill also directs the DJJ to implement more programming for residents and trauma-informed training for staff. The bill also requires Department of Juvenile Justice to work with community organizations to develop collaborative programs for youth in custody and collect data on program participation to measure outcomes. The bill also requires Department of Juvenile Justice to report on program outcomes and present any recommendations based on collected data to the Commission on Youth and to the chairman of the Senate Committee on Rehabilitation and Social Services and the House Committee on Health and Human Services by November 1st of this year. As I mentioned, this bill was recommended and was also adopted unanimously by the Commission on Youth at its December meeting. Hope it is the will of this subcommittee to recommend reporting the bill. And Mr. Chair, I also have members of the Commission on Youth here today who would like to speak to the bill as well.
Thank you, Delegate Siebold. Are there questions from the committee? Those wishing to speak in favor of the bill in person, please come forward.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. My name is Mackenzie Babachenko. I serve on the Commission on Youth. I'm here in my independent capacity as Commonwealth Attorney, Hannibal County. I did have the ability and the opportunity to be a part of this work group, and what we were charged with doing, it was myself, Julie McConnell, who advocates for our youth, and Senator Favola. We had our task was really to find areas in the entire juvenile justice system that were ripe for improvement, and this was one of those areas that we identified where there was frustration amongst all of the stakeholders, including DJJ. And I think everyone agrees that confining our youth in a solitary way, that there's nothing really good that comes from that, but there can be staffing issues, there can be public safety issues that also need to be considered. So that being said, this bill doesn't direct how many hours specifically, but to study what our goals should be. Make sure we're using trauma-informed practices and considering all of that so that everybody, all these stakeholders can have the same conversation at the same time. I think this bill is only good and will help us better serve our youth community. Thank you. I support the bill.
Thank you.
Fatima Muwahid with Survivors for Justice Reform. Again, I reiterate the fact that the brain goes into atrophy, and these are developmental brains. So this is not something that has easily corrected. This is a great bill. Thank you, Delegate, for that.
Thank you so much.
David Smith, Social Action Linking Together. For all the reasons mentioned before, we support this bill.
Thank you. Turning online, Julie McConnell, welcome.
Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. It was my pleasure to serve on the work group, as you heard, with Mackenzie Babachenko and Senator Favola as part of the Virginia Commission on Youth. And I'm a law professor at the University of Richmond. I run a children's defense clinic there where law students represent kids in court. So we have had a lot of opportunities to interact with children at Bon Air Juvenile Correctional Center. And we've seen, especially over the last few years, that there's been a rise in the use of in-cell confinement for many, many hours at a time. Ostensibly, that is used to deal with the fact that DJJ is understaffed. But obviously, it's not really the right way to handle these kinds of situations. And I think this bill does exactly as Ms. Babachenko said. It asks the department to implement best practices in this regard and to study the effects of this in-room confinement that has been excessively used to make sure that we're doing the best we can to prepare these young people to return to the community. These young people will return to our community. They're not serving life sentences. And so we want to make sure they're prepared to be productive citizens and are fully rehabilitated to the best of our ability. That has not been happening over the last few years, and so that's why this bill is so important, and I urge you to support it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. We have Miss Amy Walters. Good morning.
Hi, thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Amy Walters. I'm a legal aid justice center attorney, and I run the youth advocacy clinic at University of Virginia School of Law, kind of the parallel to Julie McConnell's clinic. For the reasons the previous speaker stated, we support this bill. I just do want to highlight that during the time the conditions at Bon Air were happening, there was outcry by the youth themselves, by their families, by advocates, and still these conditions persisted. And even Bon Air had 2 audits, their internal certification audit, they had an external audit, and still these conditions persisted because the current regulations and laws we have around room confinement are inadequate, which is why this study is needed. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. And Ms. Valerie Slater, I know you spoke to it earlier, but just make sure we've got you for the record.
For the record, yes, Valerie Slater, Executive Director of Rise for Youth, and speaking also on behalf of the Virginia State Conference in AACP, and in my capacity as a criminal defense attorney working specifically with youth. We support this bill.
Thank you so much. The bill is back for the committee. Are there questions? Delegate Weber.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Delegate Seibold, can you educate me on what happened at Bon Air?
I wasn't on the work group, and I don't want to give you all the incorrect facts. So can I, if you don't mind, can I call up Mr. Chair, the
Absolutely, welcome.
Executive Director of the Commission on Youth?
Thank you. Sorry.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. So back in the winter of 2025, there was lots of media reports in the Richmond area about fires, riots. There's particularly, the big one was the Super Bowl riot that happened at Bon Air, calls being made to Chesterfield, law enforcement to come to intervene. Numerous reports that was in this area. So in April of 2026, my chair, Senator Barbara Favola, called an emergency meeting of the Commission on Youth to learn more about what was going on with Bon Air. We had presentations from the Department of Juvenile Justice. They said, staffing was an issue. Also, there was information that was given about the number of responses that emergency crews had come to Bon Air from Chesterfield County that was given by Delegate Carrie Coyner, as that was in her district. Following that meeting, Senator Favola pulled together a work group to look specifically at ways to approach what was going on. Also, she requested Governor Youngkin to do an independent investigation of what was going on at Bon Air. Governor Youngkin has tasked the Office of the Inspector General to do an audit of Bon Air, and they gave that report in December. And some of the things that Delegate Seibold mentioned this morning was part of that report. And they had many recommendations to improve the situation at Bon Air. So I don't know, Mr. Chairman, does that answer your question, Delegate Wiebert?
To an extent, but can I ask one more?
Further question?
So in regards to the, isolation points of this piece of legislation, was Bon Air utilizing that extensively because they're vastly understaffed?
So that was one of the things that we heard, and also that was in the report from the Inspector General. They were understaffed, in a way that they handled understaffing was room confinement. And what kind of happened after that, when you put kids in a room that are 16, 17, 18 years old for hours on end, when they get out of their rooms, they act up. I mean, I would act up, you would act up. And then fires were being set. They were using very creative things that they were doing. Staff couldn't control this, so they had to put, kids in their rooms and confine them to the rooms. And then it just kept building and building and building. The department has taken steps, to try to increase the staffing at Bon Air, like lots of job fairs to try to take care of that. But really, and we really struggled when we were looking at this work group, and Ms. Babachenko we would say solitary confinement. They're like, we really don't use solitary, So it was the language. So we were like, okay, then what we really want to do is to try to encourage we flipped it, encourage time outside of their room. So we kind of flipped it, rather than trying to figure out the language, to say, we need to have more, not just structured programs for kids in the Department of Juvenile Justice, but just time to socialize and to be with other kids outside their rooms.
Okay, thank you so much for your testimony.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
The bill is back before the committee.
Move to report.
The motion's been made and properly seconded by Delegate Bennett Parker to report the wonderful House Bill 91 that is before us. In discussion.
May I speak to the legislation?
Delegate Weber speaking to the bill.
So just real quick, I would like to point out that we've had a couple of pieces of legislation today that deal with isolation and deal with a number of different things. This bill seems it's going to be much more comprehensive than that, but it also doesn't get to the heart of what we really need to, which is to make sure that we have the appropriate amount of folks to oversee the folks that are serving their time for the various reasons. I'd like to just point out that we need to take a good hard look at that, because it's not only the inmates that are unsafe, it's the folks that work there. And as was pointed out, when you keep kids in age 16 to 17 locked, just away from each other, I mean, I don't know about you, but I caused a lot of problems. Thank goodness Facebook wasn't around, right? And so I just like to point out that I believe this is the solution to this problem would be twofold. One would be to make sure that we have more people that can oversee these youth, along with the additional recommendations that are within your bill. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. You heard it here first. Delegate Weber wants to raise taxes to increase staffing. We and you are going to work together on this. The motion is made and properly seconded. Members may please cast their vote. And the bill reports unanimously. With that, that completes the work. Delegate Siebold. She moves to adjourn. Motion's been made and properly seconded to adjourn. We stand adjourned without objection.